You can't transform yourself. You can't make yourself sane. You can't make yourself loving. You can't make yourself unselfish. And yet it's absolutely necessary that we be that way. It's absolutely necessary. If we are going to hand over the direction of nature to nature, which is what it comes to, it's absolutely necessary that we let go of ourselves, and it can't be done. Not by anything that we call doing it, acting, willing, or even just accepting things. You can't do it. Why? Because you don't really exist as that kind of a separate ego or personality. It's just an idea based on a phony feeling. So when it comes down to it, it's shocking news for us, for the human race, for our pride. You're only making a mess by trying to put things straight. You're trying to straighten out a wiggly world, and no wonder you're in trouble. So you can't do anything. So you can't transform yourself. And what can you do? What happens then if you actually realize you've come to a dead end? And the human race has come to a dead end, in my opinion. What then? Commit suicide? Or is there something else? What happens when you just wait? There's nothing you can do. You watch. And all you see is what goes on that is happening of itself. You're breathing, the wind is blowing, the trees are waving, your blood is circulating, your nerves are tingling. It's all going on of itself. But you know, that's you. That's the real you. The you that goes on of itself. It's not the symbol. It's not the person. It's you that's happening, as when you breathe. Yes, you can get the feeling that I am breathing by shoving your breath, but your breath goes on day in and day out without your doing anything about it or even thinking of it. The same way your brain is functioning without your forcing it.
Why not talk about what is real? Why not talk about who we really are, not who we are not? It just emphasizes it. It just... So we don't talk about the ego here. Occasionally we might reference it in the but why go there? Why not go to what we are and emphasize that and explore that and magnify that and share that and rather than always exploring and analyzing and trying to get rid of what we are not. An illusory self that has arisen or seems to have arisen simply because we don't see who we really are clearly. Why not see who we really are clearly, and then see if there is an ego to be investigated, to be explored? Now, that doesn't mean to say that as a result of this self-exploration and self-recognition, that the residues of our old egoic thinking and feeling and acting and relating will not remain. And I'm not suggesting that one should completely ignore it. This is the criticism that is sometimes given of the direct path, that it's a spiritual bypass. Well, it is a spiritual bypass on the way back to our true nature. That is, we bypass our thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions. We go directly to ourself. But having recognized the nature of ourself, we then turn around again and we face the content of our experience, which we bypassed on the way back to ourself, the thoughts, feelings, and so on. But after this self-recognition, or as this self-recognition is stabilizing in us, we do turn back towards the thoughts and feelings, and we try to realign them with this new recognition of ourselves. So that thoughts, feelings, actions, and behavior tend to lag behind our self-recognition. In other words, one can have truly recognized one's true nature. It may not be totally established there all the time, but have a good, genuine recognition of one's true nature and be established as that much of the time, but there can still be old thoughts and old habits of thinking and feeling, and as a result, acting and relating that have not yet been upgraded, that are still running on the old operating system and need to be upgraded. And that takes time. In fact, it takes forever. It never comes to an end.
Sometimes you got to watch out for those things that don't seem like much. You know? Sometimes the littlest, seemingly most ordinary thing ends up to be like almost like a faraway knothole in the fence that you disregarded your whole life. You never looked at it. Then one day you went right up to that knothole and you put your eyeball through it, and all of a sudden you saw the entire universe of the knothole. Wow, I never knew there was a universe on the other side of this little knothole in the fence. Little things in yourself can end up to be immense things. And I think one of the most important things about this is when you start to see it, when you start to experience, even in a very subtle, small way, you start to realize, you may start to realize something very beautiful, something very, in a modern vernacular, you could say empowering. You start to realize that those moments then become choices. You know, something that's automatic, if you're running on automatic pilot, you know, and you're asleep in the back seats, there's no choice about anything. But as soon as you see how something's working, you see the moment, you see that something could be engaged or resisted, or neither one of those, you start to realize that each moment actually becomes a choice, that you actually have a choice. Without getting into the non-dualistic philosophy of no chooser and choice and all that kind of nonsense, which just goes in circles. But experientially anyway, whether you absolutely do have a choice, that's really quite inconsequential for what I'm talking about. Experientially, at each of those, you start to realize you have a choice.
Now humans tend to overthink. There is a lot of not only unnecessary thinking that generates unnecessary and in many cases non-existent problems, such as when you lie awake at night in bed and start worrying. It generates a lot of unnecessary unhappiness. Mindfulness is first of all discovering the simple fact that there is a voice in your head that continuously comments on your life or on what's happening around you. The body cannot distinguish between an actual reality, an event that's happening in the real life, and what your mind is saying. So when you have fearful thoughts, the body reacts to every fearful thought, and that's an emotion. The body reacts with an emotion, the emotion you feel in your body. The body cannot distinguish between an actual event and a thought. So when you think fearful thoughts, the emotions you feel are the emotions that are saying, I am in danger. There is an actual danger here. So you feel the emotion of fear, anxiety. You feel agitated, and it's not only not pleasant. If you indulge in that kind of useless, dysfunctional, destructive thinking year after year after year, it has its effect on the body, and it decreases the ability of the body to have the energy to fight disease.
How do you write the book that'll change the world? You go home and you write the first page. How do you get super fit? If you want to get super fit, you go on the first walk. How do you find true love if you are all alone? You talk to that person. If I stand in my true power, if I live my values, if I chase my ethical ambitions, if I live the life I truly want to live, if I let go of the energy vampires and fill my life with people whose lives I want to be living, if I become all those things, what if I fail? What if I stumble? What if I get laughed at? And that's where I think it's really important to remember the shortness of life. And that's why people, when they talk about mortality, they almost apologize. Sorry to talk about the shortness of life, but I think talking about the shortness of our lives is inspirational. Because when we remember how quick a human life goes by, no matter how long we get to live, and when we maybe every day in our meditations or in our journaling and our private conversations, we remind ourselves, soon or late, we will be nothing more than a pile of dust on a mantle above a fireplace next to Little League trophies. Number one, we don't take ourselves too seriously. And number two, we live to the point. I think what we are as human beings is we are great postponers. We are busy being busy. We are maximalists versus minimalists. We put off, we're going to do these things later. But accident, illness, death, all those things are a part of life. And I think as simple as it sounds, it's really important. One of the chapters in the book is put your last day first. Another chapter at the end is have a living funeral. Buy the cake, buy the daisies, invite your family, hear what they would say about you, tell them how much you love them, and remind yourself that life is really very short.